So, everything I could teach you, or everything anyone could teach you about japa, is being demonstrated by Srila Prabhupada in his japa. So everything we're learning here is just a description of how Prabhupada chants. So, on the board you will see a mantra, and the mantra is, when you chant, chant. Right? It seems quite simple, but it's very profound. Because everything that I've ever taught about japa comes under the umbrella of this mantra. And they say that to put something simply, to put a body of information into a simple sentence, it may appear to the average person obvious and even too simple. But it is said to put something into a simple sentence is extremely difficult. To contain a large body of knowledge in a simple sentence is not easy. So what does this mean when you chant, chant? Simple, right? It means don't eat prasadam when you chant, right? This is the Paribhasa Sutra, foundational principle of good japa. All other principles and practices are based upon this principle. Paribhasa Sutra is in any scripture, that is the verse upon which the entire scripture is based. And in Nectar Devotion, it is Anyabhilashita Shunyam, pure bhakti. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is Krishna Swayam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the source of incarnations. So in japa, at least the way I perceive japa, this simple statement encompasses the essence. And the reason is that those of us, before we gain a strong taste or attraction for japa, when we chant, we tend to be doing other things, either externally or internally. As we were discussing before, you may be giving priority to your japa by chanting early in the morning, but while you're chanting, you're actually already doing things in your day. So when you chant, chant. That's like saying when you study, study. When you read, read. Don't think about other things while you read. Focus on what you're reading. So let's go down the list here of points. Inattentive chanting results from not honoring japa as a sacred relationship that deserves our full attention and participation. So there's two aspects of inattentive chanting. And I don't think you've heard this before. So I'm going to tell you something, and it might be a little confusing. In the 10 offenses, we also say, and it's also an offense to be inattentive. Well, in the Jaiva Dharma, it says inattention is a symptom of Nam Abhas, the second stage of chanting. So what does that mean? Well, it actually means there's two kinds of inattention. And one form of inattention means your attention is on Maya. And so when you're chanting, your attention is on your material desires and you're watering them. And so that kind of inattention is offensive. The other kind of inattention is just we're not concentrating. We're kind of splayed out, right? Which is quite common. And to give an example, for the men who aren't married, the men who are married understand this. The men who aren't married probably will understand it when I give it. Oftentimes, the nature of men is that they don't listen well to their wives. Probably because they don't think what their wives are saying is that important. So, or they think she's just going to tell them the same thing that she's been telling them for the last 20 years. So he may tune out, right? So whenever you have a relationship that's important, you don't tune out. Or when you give importance to a relationship, you don't tune out. When you give less importance, you tend to tune out. So we do that sometimes with japa, just as, the wife is saying, do this, do that, you always forget to do this and that, and the man's just, he's tuning into another station. No, I've already heard that station, and I'll do it when I get around to it, type of thing. So sometimes we tune out of the relationship. But I think a better way of looking at it in japa is we're not connecting with the relation. We're not tuning out of it. It's actually never tuned into it that well. So japa is a tuning into the relationship. Again, if we go back to the idea that the goal is not to chant 16 rounds, that's not the goal. The number is not the goal. But the goal is really to chant Shuddha Nam, and Shuddha Nam is chanted without any other motivation other than to please Krishna. So the relationship with Krishna is all important. We say chanting is not just a process. More importantly, it's a relationship. And we tend to look at things we often tend to look at things as process-oriented. As I was saying, what are the mechanics? How do I sit? What direction do I face? Prabhu, is it okay? Is 5 minutes and 32 seconds and 4 milliseconds, is that about right for japa? Sometimes it takes me 7 minutes and 43 seconds. Am I going to hell for that? I got a letter the other day, and it said something like, a devotee said something, I heard in a class by a senior devotee that if I do this, it's namaparad and I'll be going to hell. So I'm kind of feeling I shouldn't chant Hare Krishna because hell was not really on my list of destinations that I was looking forward to. So if I don't chant Hare Krishna, then I guess I won't go to hell. You understand? It's like, it's so disconnected from a relationship. It's not just a process. More importantly, chanting is a relationship. Now, you might say, but isn't it true that in my state, I don't have a relationship with Krishna, and chanting is the means to awaken the relationship, and therefore, how could you say chanting is a relationship where I'm just doing a process that will awaken the relationship? That is also true, but if Krishna is in his name and you're chanting it, that means you are chanting his name. That means you and his name are there. So there is a relationship being established. Now you may not realize fully that Krishna is there, but the relationship is there, right? Just like Jambavan was wrestling with Krishna. He didn't realize it was Krishna, but still the relationship was there. There was Jambavan and there was Krishna, and they were wrestling. And then someday, at some point, he realized, I'm wrestling with Krishna. So you're there, the holy name is there, therefore it's a relationship. Right from the first mantra, the relationship is being established. So try not to enter it as a process. Oh, this is one of the 9 processes of devotional service. So what are you doing now? I'm doing the process of chanting. And it's just no, but it's a relationship. Everything bhakti is a relationship. You're chanting Krishna's name, you're connecting with him. The point, as Satyananda Swami says, very often, he says, japa means we're repairing a broken relationship. So my relationship has been broken with Krishna. I turned my back on Krishna at some point. We all did. That's why we're here. And now we're also here because we're turning around. We're facing Krishna. So when you chant japa, it's like you feel yourself turning towards Krishna and you're asking Krishna, can I be accepted back in the relationship because I broke it? That's really the mood. 1968, Prabhupada said, the Maha Mantra means Krishna, please accept me. That was a definition Prabhupada gave. Krishna, please accept me, meaning I've left the relationship, accept me back in the relationship. So that's the mood that we're supposed to be in. And then, interesting, I found another conversation. I think it was a different conversation. from this explanation of Krishna, please accept me, then Prabhupada said that I have no right to ask Krishna to accept me. Isn't that interesting? Now, why don't I have a right? Well, I left Krishna, and then for millions of lifetimes, I was envious of Krishna. I hated Krishna, dvesha. Dvesha is there in the Bhagavad Gita, raga dvesha, right? So Satsarup Maharaj asked Prabhupada, he said, Srila Prabhupada, if Krishna's so attractive, why aren't we attracted? And Prabhupada said, because you hate Krishna. Wow. You know, who thinks that they hate Krishna? Nobody thinks. Even an average person on the street, if you said, you know you're in the material world because you hate God, no one will feel like they hate God. But of course we know if you hate anybody, that's a manifestation of hatred of God. And I'm sure everybody hates somebody. At least. Sometimes we hate entire races or countries. Right? So, I've turned my back on Krishna, and now I realize that it was a mistake, a huge mistake, and now I want to reconnect. That's the meaning of the Mahamantra. But because Prabhupada said, I'm not qualified, then it creates even more of a necessity. Because Krishna, will you accept me even though I'm not qualified? So, when you're chanting and you're feeling, I want to connect, but I'm not qualified, but I really want the relationship, that's when you feel the relationship. It's almost like a separation, right? So I like to give an analogy. Let's say this screen here is the front door to our parents' home. And we left our parents many, many, many years ago, and we never called them. And the only time we called them was when we needed money, or we were in difficulty and we needed their help. But other than that, we never called them. And they would say, why don't you come home? I think you should do this. We'll help you. No, we never called. And after years and years of living separate from them and suffering without their shelter and guidance, we finally realized that was a mistake and we want to come home. And now, we've only asked them for help. We never said, I love you, or anything like that, or I value the relationship. Now we're coming home, and we're knocking on the front door. So here we are, knocking on the front door, and then they're going to open the door, and we're going to say, I've come back, will you accept me? But that would make a good movie, don't you think? The kid who runs away at 13 and ignores his parents and suffers, and his parents are very wealthy. But he had an issue with his parents, and he ran out of the home. And the parents said, don't leave, and he ran away. And then he went out into the world, and it was difficult. He had his ups and downs. And now he's like 55 years old, and he's coming back home, and he's knocking on the door. Wow. Can you hear the music? You know, and all the hardships he's gone through, and he's battered, and he's beaten. And he doesn't know if his parents will accept him. And they open the door, and they say, will you accept me back? I realized I made a huge mistake, and I'm so sorry. That's actually the mood of chanting. So it is a relationship. It is a connection. And then you can see how bad it is to chant just to try to get your rounds done when that's the mood and that's the connection we're trying to make. Because if you're just trying to get your rounds done, what kind of connection are you making with Krishna as a person? It's kind of like saying, Krishna, you're okay, but I find it really boring to spend time with you. Like 2 hours is a lot of time. You know, I mean, if it was just a half hour, I could tolerate it, but like 2 hours is really boring. Now, of course, nobody would consciously say that, would they? But in fact, when we chant and become distracted and we're just trying to chant our rounds, I think we could all admit subconsciously that's really what we're saying. But of course you're saying, well, I'm not really saying that. What I'm really saying is Krishna's attractive, but I'm not attracted. Okay, that's really what's going on. But indirectly we're saying, Krishna, there's nothing here. I'm not feeling anything. So if you find yourself in that consciousness, then when you chant, you're praying, Krishna, let me feel, let me connect. It's all about connection. It's all about you and this person, Krishna. So it's not just a process, it's a relationship. So we gave that example of the flowers, right? The man throws the flowers on the table, goes up to his wife, gives his wife a high five and says, how you doing? And then he walks away while she's talking. Right? So that's process without relationship. So chanting is a process to awaken relationship. But we are connected when we chant, and the relationship is more important than the process. And if you have the relationship properly, you have the process properly. Now, preview of coming attractions. From my marriage workshop called Sacred Union. There's a point in the workshop which relates to this, and it's a point between man and women. If you go to your traditional marriage workshop, which I wouldn't advise you to go to, but if you go to your traditional marriage workshop, they will teach you techniques. This is how to listen. Empathic listening. This is how to make conversation. They'll teach you all kinds of techniques and methods and get the flowers and do this. And if you're angry, then have a timeout and don't talk. All these techniques. But if you're stuck in these problems of not listening and all the other problems for which you need a process to counteract, that means you have a bad relationship. Because in good relationships, do people listen? Yes or yes? Listening is a byproduct of a good relationship. Not listening is a byproduct of a bad relationship. So if you just work on the relationship, you don't have to teach people how to listen. If you teach them how to make a better relationship, they will listen. Because that's what they did when they were first together, when they were madly in love and couldn't live a moment without thinking of one another or talking to one another, right? Every 3 seconds they were calling one another. Isn't it? That's a symptom of love. No communication problems for people in love. It's people in bad relationships, they have communication problems as a general principle, right? So you apply that same thing to the holy name, right? If the mood is proper, then the methods of chanting and so on, they'll naturally be good. So have you ever, caught yourself kind of like this? You're sitting down and you're kind of Hare Krishna, Krishna, and you're just distracted, or you're outside and you're against a wall and you're kind of like Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Isn't that a symptom of a loss of energy, a distraction? Isn't it all the external physiology is just symptomatic that you're not chanting well? And then if you see a devotee chanting like this, and I'm going to imitate, and this is not made up, I'm going to imitate a devotee chanting at one of our Japa retreats, and this picture is very clearly imprinted in my mind, and it was like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It was like he was licking ice cream. Literally, it was amazing. It was how much he was relishing. So he was chanting. You could see the ruchi. It was written all over his face. So it wasn't like this. He wasn't chanting like this or like that. Naturally, because he was relishing, he was focused. He was sitting straight and so forth. So I'm not minimizing techniques, but ultimately, if you're connecting in the relationship, naturally, externally, those things will follow, just as good communication follows good relationship. It's a really interesting point, isn't it? People come in and say, well, my husband and I don't talk. Okay, I'll teach you how to talk. That's not the problem. The problem is you don't have a good relationship. Solve that and you'll talk. So now I teach you to talk. And you go, every day I want you to talk for 10 minutes. So you made the time 7 o'clock. So the husband comes in. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's talk. We got 10 minutes. All right. What do you want to say? So the wife's, like really excited to talk to him, isn't she? She just says, forget it. Okay, forget it. And he goes back and watches television. Right? So it's something like that. Yeah? I think you get the point, right? Chanting is a relationship. It's not just a process, and the relationship is more important. You are there, the holy name is there, there's a relationship. You're connecting every morning to the holy name. So a lot of this talk about trying to get my rounds done, looking at my counter beads, looking at my watch, it gets really boring and dry. That's a disconnection from the mood of reconnecting. So we're going home, we're knocking on the door, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, please accept me. Radha, please accept me. I want your service. I want to come back. That mood connects the relationship. And so when you're in that mood, it's very sweet. You could imagine, right? Very sweet. Because it's all coming from here, the heart. When you lose the heart, that's when you get into mechanical chanting, right? And I think we defined that earlier today. Mechanical chanting is like lifeless chanting, which is lifeless, which would mean heartless. It's just, there's nothing going on. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, let's talk. There's nothing going on. He doesn't want to talk. But he's doing it. He's showing up because he's trying to show up for his wife. He's not interested in what she has to say, but he's there. So we want to get beyond this. Okay, I'm showing up for my 16 rounds. I'm not really interested in them, but my guru asked me to chant, so I'm doing it. We want to get beyond that. When you chant will get you beyond that. Japa is a meditation on Krishna, not a preoccupation with our lives or the things around us, both internally and externally. So it goes back to that point, it's a relationship. So if it's a relationship, that's what you focus on. I was saying earlier that some of us may think, well, I'm focusing on my service. Like, what am I going to cook for the deities, or the details of my service during the day, and isn't that okay? I think we can answer that question by asking you a question. Did it sound like Prabhupada was thinking about his service when he was chanting japa? Did you get that impression? That he was balancing his checkbook, he was making plans of who to send which devotee where. You didn't get that sense. You got that sense that he was in relationship, didn't you? That someone said that he was realizing Krishna in his name. We all got the sense Krishna was there when Prabhupada was chanting. He wasn't doing anything else.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Connection. You feel the connection?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Someone said they could feel that he's there with Krishna? There's nothing else going on? Yes. Yeah, conversation. Okay, this is nice. Because if we go back to my example was what? We're knocking on the door, and we're asking Krishna, please accept me. That's a conversation. I don't know if you're aware of this, but many of the acharyas have given meanings to the holy name. And each meaning that they gave was a request. Oh, Krishna, please. So that's the conversation. So every morning when we're chanting, we're actually having a conversation, or at least we have the opportunity for a conversation. We may not actually have the conversation because we've tuned out of the relationship, but if you tune into the relationship, it's an opportunity to ask Krishna, oh Krishna, please. Please what? Well, you might say, please engage me in devotional service. Yes, Prabhupada gave us that definition, but he elaborated on that definition. I've been engaged in Maya service for so many lifetimes. I'm sick and tired. I'm fed up. please give me your service. This is what I want. So it's not just a very closed and strict mood, but it's very broad. Please accept me. It broadens it. I want to be engaged in your service, but even more fundamental, accept me. That's the conversation. Uplift me, direct me, empower me, bring my heart to you. Whatever you're feeling that you need in devotional service, you should empower your japa with those needs. Krishna, please, please, please allow me to be an instrument of your will. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Give me the ability, give me the intelligence to serve you. Give me the qualification to serve you. I'm so fallen, I have no qualification. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Now here's a really important point. To the degree that you have a need, to that degree your chanting will be intensified by the need. So let's say your need, you really feel intensely you want to expand your service, and you feel unqualified, and you feel desperately dependent on Krishna to empower you. Then when you chant your rounds, it's very, very heartfelt. There's a lot of emotion because there's a lot of need. Just like if I said to you, right now we're giving each of you 100 Bhagavad Gitas. You need to get 350 rupees for each. And we're going to drop you off in the next town. And we'll just let you chant around before you go out. It's like, how am I going to distribute 100 Bhagavad Gitas? And I have to get, that's 3,500 rupees. And some of you are going into your rooms. Oh, I'll just get the 3,500. No, you can't do that. You have to go out. And you can't come back unless you've sold every book. Oh, this is going to be difficult. So then I say, well, let's pray before we go out. So now everybody's very serious in their japa. This is going to be difficult. Hare Krishna, Krishna, please empower me, give me intelligence. I don't know how to do this. I don't even speak Hindi. How am I going to do it? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you're not praying, Krishna, please download the Hindi language in my brain in the next round. No, you're praying somehow or other for some empowerment. So that, I think that's an example we can all relate to, because we all need to be empowered in our service. And the more you feel the need for that, Krishna, help me, I can't do this, I'm dependent on you, the more your chanting becomes powerful, especially heartfelt. You really feel it, you're really calling. And that kind of chanting to just get your rounds done, it's devoid of that praying for what you need in to become a pure devotee, or what you need right now to overcome some anartha you're dealing with. Oh Krishna, I'm proud, please help me overcome this pride. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's a necessity for you. So that's what, when you say japa is a conversation, it's so true. You're opening your heart to Krishna and saying, Krishna, this is where I'm at, this is what I need. I'm totally at your mercy. I'm helpless. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then, if it's a conversation, that means it goes two ways, right? And then you listen. How do you listen with japa? In your heart, you listen. Because Krishna speaks to the heart. So you're chanting. Have you ever had that experience? You're chanting and something came to you, and it didn't come here, it came here? Because within the frequency of the holy name, within that vibration, it is what? Full of knowledge. Right? It's the life of all knowledge. So it's a two-way conversation, and you're listening for Krishna's guidance. How is he directing you? So it's now, imagine every day for 2 hours you had a room in your house, and in that room Krishna agreed to appear at a set time. Like 5 o'clock. Krishna said, I'll come to your house after Mangalarti. Well, I'll get there at 5:10. You can worship Tulsi Puja. And then for the next 2 hours, we're going to talk. And you did this every day for the rest of your life. Would that be good? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Just think how our lives would be if we did that every day. Just incredible. And how connected we would be to Krishna the whole day, how connected we would be to the Srimad Bhagavatam, to the whole disciplic succession, to the whole process and practice and realm of Krishna consciousness. But that's what we're doing. But the problem is, some of us are missing the opportunity. So Krishna's there, and the conversation is open, but we don't have it. We don't give it, and we don't hear it. And so we miss that day. So then every day that we chant with that neglect is another day we missed that conversation. Krishna could tell me, like, you miss a class and everyone walks out and says, that was such a good class. And you're like, oh, that was the best class I ever heard. That was amazing. And you just feel horrible, right? But I think it's like that with japa, that every japa session is potentially an amazing class that we could be missing. So now imagine we improve our chanting. That means every day something's happening. Some deeper connection with Krishna is going on. That's japa. It's a connection. It's a conversation. Thank you for bringing that point. It's a conversation. It is. And you have to instigate that conversation according to your need in bhakti at that particular time. And your needs may change every day, every week, right? Krishna, I'm here. I want you. I don't know how to connect with you. I'm so fallen. I'm so full of material desire, but I want that connection. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Purify my heart of everything that gets in the way. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Whatever you have to do to get me to surrender, do it. I'm ready. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All these things go on. So if you have a chance to look at the different definitions that the acharyas give of the holy name, each one is just a prayer. Krishna, bring my heart to you. Krishna, uplift me, bring me closer. Show me how to serve you. Make me enjoyable to you. It's all desires in connection with a relationship. So, whenever you're going into what I call the no japa zone, the dead japa zone. The dead japa zone is when you enter this zone and the holy name seems to have this amazing potency to bore you. And the whole process of japa becomes extremely boring. You have entered the dead japa zone. And you have to get out of that zone. There's a show called The Twilight Zone. And people would enter this surrealistic atmosphere. And then the announcer would say, you have entered the Twilight Zone. And some mystical thing would go on there. Paranormal, something paranormal. They did a play after the Christmas marathon. You have entered the Sankirtan zone. And show devotees doing all these amazing things on book distribution. So we all know what the japa dead zone is, right? So whenever you're in that zone, you can get out of it by activating it with your need, your prayer, or just, Krishna, I want a relationship. Accept me. I'm begging. Take me. Something that simple. Is that clear? Questions? A fairly busy street. It was too busy to cross it without my mother crossing it when I was young. And of course, in those days, there were no cell phones. So the way we communicated is I would just be on the other side of the street and I would yell and she could hear in the house. Because the street wasn't that wide. So I would play with my friend. He lived right across the street and one house down. And then when we were finished, I guess my mother had some idea of what time we'd be finished. I would walk right across from the house and I would yell. And what would I say? Who knows what I would say? It's probably like 7. Yeah. Before I said help, what would I say? Mom, mom. Yeah, mom, mom. Like that. That's actually all I said. I didn't say anything else. So I would just call and then she would come. Now, when I was calling mom, That was a mantra. Within the mantra, it meant, I finished playing, I want to come home. Could have meant, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm dirty, I cut my finger. But I didn't have to say all that. All I had to say is, Mom, right? And everything else was contained in Mom, right? So I was hearing the word Mom, but what was behind the Mom was the feeling that I want to come home, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I cut my finger, I'm dirty, it's hot out, it's cold. You understand? So I'm fully conscious of the word Mom, but what is empowering that Mom are all the feelings. So when you're having these feelings, when we say, for example, it means please accept me, but please accept me is not something that is here in your head while you're chanting. It's coming from your heart. So it's not a deviation from your hearing. If you have to make a mental adjustment, it's becoming artificial. It means you're not feeling it. You know, it's like saying, I should feel, Krishna, please accept me. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I'm chanting Hare Krishna, and I'm in my head thinking, I'm supposed to think, Krishna, please accept me. That's not what we mean. But we mean that's a feeling which is empowering. So it doesn't conflict with your absorption. It actually aids it. Because it's all about feeling. It's not about mechanistic. Oh, I'm just supposed to hear. Okay, so I'm hearing perfectly. That's good. But you don't want to chant without feeling and just hearing, because then it tends to become mechanistic. Because what does the mantra mean? Krishna, engage me, uplift me, accept me. That's the feeling behind the mantra. Because the mantra is a prayer. So a prayer means supplication. Prayer means you're asking for something, right? So what are we asking for? Krishna, help me get my 16 rounds done. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. No, that's not. So if we go back into that mechanistic japa, it's just a method, it's not a relationship, that's when you'd have the problem. Well, I'm supposed to think this way, but how do I hear? And then you're supposed to feel like this. Now I'm confused. And I think Vrindavani once asked me that question because she heard a lecture or something, said, well, you're just supposed to hear. And I said, well, you're supposed to feel also. I said, well, I'm supposed to hear, I'm supposed to feel. And then I said, not only are you supposed to feel, but you're also supposed to feel Krishna's love coming through the holy name. So it's not just your affection, but it's also feeling Krishna's affection. And then I just said a minute ago, you're supposed to listen to Krishna speaking to you. And you're supposed to give your heart. Oh, this is getting really confusing now. So am I supposed to speak my heart? Am I supposed to listen? Am I supposed to feel Krishna's love? Or am I just supposed to feel Krishna's presence when I chant? But then, so it's not meant to be understood on that intellectual level. It's meant to be experienced. All these things will naturally be experienced on higher levels of chanting. Now we're just kind of explaining it because we're not there. It's like I could write a book on love. So when you first meet, then your heartbeat's going to raise, and you're going to have perspiration on your hand if that's the right person, and then you're going to look into their eyes, and then your temperature's going to go up a half a degree. So then you look at the girl and you're trying to, let me make my temperature go up a half a degree, make my hands perspire. It's not like that. So we tend to see it that way, but it's meant to be natural, as not like ABCD. Okay, first pray, then ask, okay, what am I praying for today? And then the whole time you're chanting japa, you're trying to figure out what to pray for. So then you're in your head, So japa is heart, it's not head. So that's why we might get confused. Well, I'm supposed to hear and be absorbed in my mind, but now we're talking about the heart, and then we're talking about prayer, and there's so many ways I can pray. This is getting confusing. No, it's really just one thing. It's just various divisions of one. It's just part of a relationship. Like you have a relationship with people, it's not just, it's multifaceted. There's many aspects of it, isn't it? There's the serious part, there's the funny part, there's the relationship when you play together, and the relationship when you work together. Who's confused? Raise your hand if you're confused. What? The problem is getting the feeling. Yeah, okay. So, The problem is getting the feeling, going from this state of I have to chant to the state of Krishna, please accept me, Krishna, please uplift me. So, if you look at japa as a relationship, what is our relationship with Krishna look like? Well, number one, it looks like I would like it better than it is, right? So that's a feeling. I want it better. So a lot of times the feelings are right underneath us. They're potentially there. But when we enter japa, if we enter in the mood of, I just have to get this done, I have a busy day, then we don't go deeper to the feelings that could come up. So when you chant early in the day, you're not distracted, then you can go more deeply on this level. Okay, I'm here, Krishna's there, I want to connect. What do I want to ask Krishna for? What do I need today in my spiritual life? You can go to those places, and then the feelings will naturally be evoked. If we don't do that, then we always will. If we don't do that, and we don't have ruchi, or we're not coming close to ruchi, then it will tend to be mechanical, and then it will tend to be boring. When it gets boring, it's you've disconnected from the relationship, and you don't really realize you're in a relationship. You just think you have a mantra, and you have to chant this mantra 16 rounds, and the mantra almost becomes like just a sound. It has nothing to do with the person whom you're addressing. It's just like mechanical. It's like a Buddhist meditation. Let's meditate on the wall. Okay, so everybody stare at the wall, free your mind from thought. Now, how long can you do that? It'll get dry after a while. Because the wall can't reciprocate with your meditation, can it? It's just the wall. Krishna can reciprocate. So real meditation is there's two people, there's reciprocation. So if you just take your japa to that level, go a little more deeply, and start to consider the relationship, what you need to come closer to Krishna, you'll be able to invoke the feelings more. And then by chanting, feelings come out even more if you're chanting properly. Because love for Krishna is natural, so it's getting awakened, right? By good chanting. The impure chanting, it doesn't really awaken much. It doesn't even awaken us, puts us to sleep, right? How many times have we fallen asleep chanting? Now, more times than we want to. If we've fallen asleep once, that's one time more than we want to. Now, many devotees say, how do you deal with falling asleep? So let's say you're hungry and you love kafta. You like kafta? You know kafta? It's really good, right? Vegetarian meatballs kind of thing. Kafta and spaghetti is really good. With nice spaghetti sauce, with some nice vegetables in it, and a little cream on top, and just a dash of sugar and the right spices. It's so good. So you're falling asleep, and I say, I have some spaghetti with kafta balls. You want some? You wake up. There's no question. You know, like that inspires you. Yeah, I'm awake. So my experience is that the more there is ruchi in japa, the less you fall asleep. And the less there's ruchi, then there's more chance of falling asleep when you're tired, because nothing's really exciting going on in your japa. At least it's not exciting enough to keep you awake. Right? So here's the joke. This is how we're going to support our ISKCON temples. At every center, we're going to open an insomnia clinic. And people will come in and say, I can't sleep. I say, no problem. Here's some japa beads. Start chanting, right? And you should be fast asleep in 10 minutes. But if that doesn't work, I'm leaving a Srimad Bhagavatam here. And you can read that. And that 1-2 punch will definitely knock you out. Right? So, and this is how we'll fund the Hare Krishna movement. Insomnia clinics. Simple, right? Japa and Bhagavatam. Yes? Does it work? Yeah. One time they asked Prabhupada, said, Prabhupada, what is a Brahmin? Prabhupada said, one who can keep their eyes open during Bhagavatam class is a Brahmin. You said that, yeah. That's true. So, I think the best answer to the question of how do I stay awake is ruchi. Because look at it this way. If chanting the holy name is a relishable experience for you, then you wouldn't want to fall asleep, because if you did, you wouldn't have the experience. Just like if you're eating that kofta and spaghetti, even if you're tired, if you fall asleep, you can no longer relish it. So naturally, you're going to stay awake, right? Because you want to experience it. So imagine you're chanting the holy name and you're getting some taste. Wouldn't that keep you awake? Because it's exciting, and certainly you don't want to miss the experience. So her question is very good, that sometimes we don't have the feeling, but we need to somehow or other stimulate it. So a lot of what we're discussing here, if you go over it before your japa, can bring you to that level. We can say maybe it's a little artificial, but it can bring you to that level where it will no longer be artificial. It'll just get it going, rather than... So we break this cycle of, oh no, 16 rounds, here I go again. This is going to be difficult. It was so hard yesterday. It was so boring. Now I'm going to do it again. Yeah, and so we kind of enter this consciousness of, oh, another day, another bad day with japa.